Good evening, and welcome to another exciting episode of Moen After Dark here on the College Football Mafia family of networks. I am, of course, your host, Moen, joined by my co host, Rock. Um, Alabama's out, SMU's in.
It's
There's a lot of
devastating.
people who are very sad about that.
Yeah, it just means more tears. What are we gonna do? Like I thought we might do a telethon. Maybe we'll just see who can come up with the best AI image. You know, woolly mammoth becomes a horse kind of thing.
It's tough with AI. If you see my thumbnail, it is all kinds of weird. There's a white guy body with like a black person photo head on it, and there's like a dwarf in the background who plays for Alabama. But it got Gene Wilder spot on. It did a
Yeah, pretty
fantastic
good.
job with Gene Wilder. So, and
It
that
is
was the
pretty
best
good.
one. That was the best one I could get. So well, AI's getting there, guys. It just needs to get a little bit better.
It is, but all you need to do really is wear the logo that's on your hat, and everything looks right anyway.
There you go. Or if you're wearing a logo on your hat that's green and you have a green screen, it'll just see right through. By the way, I
Absolutely.
had to explain to people that is a Buckeye leaf on the front of my hat. That's a Buckeye leaf.
Sure, it is.
It is. Let's say hello to some people. Everybody's here. I'm sure they're fascinated about how we feel about championship weekend, as well as the playoffs. Playoffs are here. Nathan Campbell says hi. Good to see you, Nathan. Ryan Willie, the Evil Badgers in the house. Hi, CFM. I loved it when Franklin took a shot at Notre Dame. He said that everyone should be in a conference and play for a conference title.
I did hear that, proving that everyone has their own personal version of broken clock theory.
There you go. We'll go with that. Love the thumbnail, Moen. Did you know that Gene Wilder was from Wisconsin? Yes, I believe Milwaukee. Jerome Sieberman was his real name. Fantastic comedic actor. Ryan Willie says Feinbaum was ripping on the Big Ten, saying Indiana shouldn't be in over Bama. You know what? When Indiana played 6-6 teams, they beat them. So I beat the 500 teams in your conference.
And when it's all said and done, like I had a lot of complaining last week when it was a comparison of like to like, and the arguments that that Ward Manuel making were just like easily destroyable. But I'm not really going to spend any tears on arguing over 11, 12, and 13 when it's all said and done.
What do you think about the BYU coach's extension and the new Utah offensive coordinator? Well, I think for BYU, it's probably a good thing, although A-Rod's going to stick around. For Utah, their offense was very offensive this season, so they needed a new OC.
Yeah, poor New Mexico is just getting slaughtered from coaching down to transfer portal with coaches leaving, OCs leaving, players leaving. But good offensive coordinator. It's a good. I think it's a good hire for Utah. The bar was really low, but for sure it's a good hire.
Stephen Vitt, Ohio Bobcats MAC champions. This is one of the best weekends in college football history. Ohio Bobcats win the MAC title. Clemson wins the ACC, and Alabama gets kicked out. This is an A side, but I want to put this out here. I found something that annoyed the shit out of me last night. The Ohio coach, Tim Albin, great coach, coached under Frank Solich, really great guy. He apparently was working behind the scenes to take the Charlotte job. I'm not going to begrudge him moving to Charlotte from Athens. But I have a problem with reporters. Can we just cool it and let those kids have a 24-hour grace period to just enjoy their win? Do we really need to rub it in their face after they want to? Let them kids party that night. You don't have to rug pull them and let them know their coach is leaving.
Fair enough. And I don't know how you really police that because there's just too many. Even when you're in that zone, there's so many people who wind up finding out about it. Just the process of hiring that you can never trust it's not going to go there. And one reporter is never going to want to get scooped by somebody else. But your point is 100% valid.
Yeah,
sucked for them. It was like epic for
no,
Ohio there. So
first MAC championship since 1968. First win in a MAC championship game for the Ohio University Bobcats. Big Lubbock is just telling us he's fourth. Big 12 got a bye, and ACC got two teams and no bye. Very true. And Arizona State looked very good yesterday.
Yeah, they did.
I mean, Cam Scatterbo. People were on Twitter calling him the next Mike Allstott. I don't think he's quite the power back that Mike Allstott was, but
Yeah,
that's fun to watch.
he's got more. I get the center of balance thing on the field, but also was definitely a bigger guy. Unless I'm completely forgetting my time, and I think Scatterby is a little bit more elusive actually as well. So
Yeah, the A train Mike Allstott used to wear those big shoulder pads with I think they called him a cowboy collar. It made him look a lot bigger than he was, but he was
yeah,
a big
he looked like a
dude.
linebacker with
Yeah.
a ball in his hands.
Yep. Jan Hulk says, "Hey all, good to see you, Jan." Buffs versus BYU conference bowl game in San Antonio. Sad. Yeah, it's going to be tough for me to get up for bowl season this year.
There was a couple of things that they could have done while still maintaining the existing bowl tie-ins, and I get the whole thing with the former Pac-12 schools and in the Big 12 and those alliances, but like in theory, and this is because I know these specifically, you could have done the Gator Bowl with Miami and Alabama as an example, which would have been a virtual like what if tie-in play-in bowl. And it would have been super interesting if they could have maneuvered things despite any obligation. Remember, ESPN owns most of those bowls. Yes, they have the organizing committees there, but ESPN owns most of them. There's a world where you could have tried to make Colorado and Miami play and have Shedeur Sanders go against Cam Ward, where both of them seem likely to be playing at this moment, and had a really interesting game that would have at least piqued interest for the first half. But, I'm not like uninterested in seeing those other games because they're not going against playoff games, right? So I'm still interested in seeing what the future might be. There's a lot of opt-outs. It's a little bit worse.
Jan Hulk says, Bama is rightfully out, but I have a problem. The best ACC team is not in. Notre Dame is benefiting from playing nobody. G5 are looked in same way as power conferences and likes of Big 12 getting effed. I assume you're saying Miami is the best team in the ACC.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to – one, I think that's possible, but I don't know because the way that everybody didn't play each other. I think Miami's ceiling is better than SMU or Clemson's on a given day, but the defense is so bad that the floor can also be pretty bad on a given day. And I will have every fight about Miami versus Alabama last week with what Ward Manuel said, which was not about strength of schedule, strength of record, and I can destroy that. But Miami not making it when you lost those two games and came in third off of tiebreakers in the messed up, non-balanced conference world is what it is, man.
Bob Swanger's here. He says, "Hi, all. Good to see you, Bob." Craig Flugar says, "Feinbaum is a moron." Well, that's what he gets paid to be.
Yep. I just wonder, it must be really hard to walk with Sankey's hand up your ass all the time.
That's why Paul Feinbaum is bald and has a skinny neck. That way he can get right up Sankey's ass. We'll talk a little bit about Greg Sanctimonious here in a little bit. Good evening, gents. Good to see you, Jose. Canes versus Clones in the Left Out Bowl. Who are the Clones? You might have to explain that joke to make an under Matt Williams.
I mean, I get a lot of stuff, but I literally have no idea what the Clones part is.
I don't.
Other than a bad part of the Star Wars universe.
Yes. Evening, guys. Not sure I am in love with this playoff being so wonky and clumsy. Needs immediate tweaks. Go Buffs. Remember the Alamo.
You know what?
Yeah.
There are criticisms for sure. But I will take complaining about 10, 11, 12, and who got a home game over, I don't know, because it's always in my head. 2000 FSU loses to Miami, gets to go to the college football playoff by the computers, despite both having one loss, and the head-to-head didn't matter. To me, we're arguing over 10, 11, and 12. We're not arguing over the best teams who most likely deserve are in some form and still have control over their destiny. Yes, we can argue about the seeding, and yes, we can argue about who 8 or 9 on who got a home game, but you've kind of covered all your bases. And the other thing for me on all of this is it's the college football playoff version of March Madness. You get a bunch of teams who get their first pass in, and a bunch of teams that are not the best one in the 64, but they get their way in through a conference, and nobody seems to complain about that other than the seeding part, which I understand in terms of like the buys in the first four.
All right. I'm going to pause it right there. I see there's a lot of people coming in. We will say hello to you. We will get to more of your questions and comments, but Jan Hoke brings up a great point here, which is going to bring us to our next segment. I'm afraid this will lead to less good out of conference games. I don't want in more FCS games. And with that, I will bring you up the tweet from the Alabama athletic director, Greg Byrne. Disappointed with the outcome and felt we were one of the 12 best teams in the country. We had an extremely challenging schedule and recognized there were two games in particular that we did not perform as well as we should have. We have said that we would need to see how strength of schedule would be evaluated by the CFP. With this outcome, we will need to assess how many P4 non-conference games make sense in the future to put us in the best position to participate in the college football playoff. That is not good for college football. With that said, we do not need to hang our heads and now need to finish the season strong. We have a great group of young men who have led us with Coach DeBoer through the last year, and we look forward to our opportunity in the Relia Quest Bowl. Hashtag Roll Tide. Now, here's my favorite part.
Straw man bullshit.
Here's my favorite part. Community notes on Twitter. So enough people complained about the misinformation on this. All of Alabama's losses came in conference play. Alabama's non-conference schedule was one of the easiest in the country, playing two Group of Five schools, Western Kentucky and University of Southern Florida, one FCS school, and one Power 4 team, the 5-7 Wisconsin Badgers, who finished 12th in the Big Ten.
Who wants to go first? Ramon, are you ready for yours?
I'm ready for mine. This is the most asinine argument I've ever heard. We need to assess our Power 4 out of conference because we lost by 21 points to Oklahoma, who was finished, I believe they finished 6-6.
They did finish 6-6. They possibly would have been under 500 without beating Alabama.
Yes. So, and they lost that. They lost to Vanderbilt. Now
also
it was a good year.
6-16.
Also, but that's good for Vanderbilt. We got to give them credit for that. So that was a good Vanderbilt team for Vanderbilt. But you guys lost two road games to 500 teams. And one of them, you absolutely got beat down by an Oklahoma team that couldn't score with a $100 bill hanging out of their zipper. Yeah. So, I mean, you can't, this is the dumbest argument to say this has anything to do with out of conference. It doesn't. In fact, if you had a stronger out of conference and had a win over a quality opponent, say you had scheduled Clemson in the offseason as one of your out of conference games, and you had that win, that probably would have put you over the top. It's not the out of conference scheduling that's the issue.
You don't even need to have won because your strength of schedule is based on everybody else's action. So if you had lost a la Indiana, right? Indiana's strength of schedule jumped 50 spots the time that they played Ohio State. Period. End of story. So it's completely crap. And just to prove it, how much of ridiculous is, and I'm not crying for Miami. We didn't do what we needed to do, but in the like-to-like thing, there was a week 3 weeks ago where Miami was on bye doing absolutely nothing. Alabama beat Mercer and jumped over Miami in the rankings. They beat Mercer, an FCS school, admittedly a good FCS school, but not even G5. FCS, they're in the playoffs right now. I know they're not like a terrible FCS school, but the whole thing we talked about a few weeks ago about when that game is scheduled completely played into their favor. Like how the hell they jumped over an idle team with that quote-unquote data point is ridiculous. So they have a very weak out-of-conference game. I know they had one good game. I know they went up to, Michigan, right?
Wisconsin,
sorry. There was Texas that went to Michigan. But the argument is completely ridiculous. Like if you beat Oklahoma, you don't have a problem. You were favored by 14. You didn't even score a touchdown. The community notes here is probably the only good feature that has changed on Twitter in the last 2 years. So
it's funny in this instance. I thought it was great. Listen, you already play one less conference game than everybody else. And
ACC plays the same amount of conference games actually, so it's not just that.
Okay, fair enough. But you do play one less than the Big Ten and the Big 12. So, what do you want? Your 3 losses came in a conference on an 8-game conference schedule. What do you want to do? Do you want the conference to compensate you somehow? Should they give you? I mean, look, they gave you Oklahoma in a down year, like a really down year for Oklahoma. Obviously, their first year in the SEC, but going off their previous success in the Big 12, it was a down year for the Sooners. They gave you Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt is usually the stepping stone of the SEC. You couldn't beat those 2 teams, guys. I mean, as much as they want to complain, Paul Feinbaum wants to complain. Indiana got in at 11-1. Indiana's only loss was to Ohio State on the road. They did not lose to any subpar teams. They pretty much dominated all the teams. Now you can say, well, they had a soft schedule. Indiana doesn't get to choose their conference schedule. Conference chooses that for them.
That's what drove me nuts today during the selection show was they kept on talking about the talking heads, Kirk Herbstreit, Nick Saban. Admittedly, a lot of the SEC schools had better strength of schedules. Like I'm not acting like they didn't, but there was it was implied that others didn't schedule well, as opposed to the fact that it was just literally luck of the draw for some schools in various conferences. It was within the SEC, it was that way as well. Texas got a luck of the draw schedule where they wound up playing no top 25 teams and just were in by the nature of where they were starting and they're ranked, and they played well, but they didn't beat Georgia yesterday. They lost to Georgia a lot more earlier in the season. If you're the ACC, who knew that Florida State was going to be 2-10, right, as opposed to more likely 10-2 from early season projections. So that aspect, as if schools didn't try to schedule harder, as opposed to you got the luck of the draw within your conference in a you're playing everybody world. And at the same time, they're completely ignoring the fact that the intention, right, or at least the theory is that the Big Ten and the SEC plan to do a scheduling agreement. So all these other schools will never get a chance to strengthen their schedule if they're shut out of getting to play those. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy in how everything is being done. The one thing I will say is everyone's sitting there thinking about canceling strength of schedule games. That committee changes year by year, and results happen on the field year by year. So just because this year there was mediocrity relatively in the SEC where there might not have been somebody great at the top and the bottom, but there's a lot in the middle. There's no guarantee that next year we're going to be in 3-loss conversations across the board. It might not be that way. And guess what? Having good strength of schedule because you played out of conference schools might be the difference. You really don't know yet. It's too soon into the process, and making wholesale changes in what you're thinking about scheduling wise in the future is probably going to come bite you in the ass.
Yeah, and I just want to make this clear. There is an argument for putting Alabama in over SMU.
There is.
This is not the argument they're making. They're making a dumb argument. Their argument is the SEC conference was so tough for us and we lost to 2 500 teams.
Right. It's as dumb as the argument of within your own fan base of saying you should have just done it on the field. Of course, they all should have just done it on the field. You can have that conversation. That is not the conversation of when they're making excuses or throwing out data between you and other teams that did not do it on the field and put it into the committee's hands, right? They're two different situations. Miami could have done it on the field. Iowa State could have done it on the field. Ole Miss could have done it on the field. What the conversation was about the teams who did not completely do it on the field that left it open to a committee to decide how are you comparing them and are you doing it fairly, and are you moving one school down 8 for the same thing you only moved the other school down 4. That's what the conversation, the outrage is. And again, I'm not crying over the 12th seed. I'm not, or the 11th seed for that matter.
Yeah, it's, the best way they could make this argument is say, look at the top 25 teams we did play and beat. Don't look, when you're highlighting the argument that you lost 3 games, 2-6 to 5 to 2 6-6 teams, that's a dumb argument. I don't know Greg Byrne from Adam, but that's a stupid argument. I can't imagine this guy. I don't know. Just, it's dumb. I mean, Alabama does have SMU played a soft schedule. Again, they don't have a choice over who they get scheduled against in the ACC. They don't. So that soft schedule, they played Louisville. Louisville was in the championship game last year. You know, they don't you don't know from year to year with these teams. It's the same thing with Indiana. Indiana played Michigan. It was a down year for Michigan,
Well,
but
here's another
Indiana
thing.
won.
In the top 25 this week, not that it's going to make a big difference, but Duke is the only 9-3 team in the last, I think, 8 or 10 years that did not finish in the Bowl Selection Committee's top 25.
Okay.
So, like a self-fulfilling prophecy, literally the only one that has not. So that could have been a top 25 win for SMU over whoever, right? But they selectively chose not to do it, right? So, like, you're arbitrarily deciding that it's the top 25. Like, what if, like, 20 years ago we said it was a top 30 was the thing we all looked at?
Yeah, here's the issue with the playoffs. This is the same issue we've always had. Whoever's left out is going to feel that they were more deserving than whoever got in. We had this issue with the BCS system. We had this issue with the 4-team playoff system. We're going to have this issue with the 12-team playoff system.
For sure. And always, you have it in March Madness, the team, like, on the but like the CFP and the ESPN graphics are literally just mimicking the bubble watch, right, for the basketball tournament for March Madness forever. And I would caution Alabama. It's one thing, I think they took it too far and it's like caused them like grief and the thing. It's one thing for Florida State to like lose their minds about being undefeated and left out of the top 4 when their quarterback goes down and you guys make some new random excuse. And their arguments about that. And they had a very good justification. They were literally undefeated. Alabama's got 3 losses. If they start like going on and on about it for 11 months like that, like it's going to make the program look kind of like a bunch of jackasses.
Yeah. Like I said, Alabama, you got an argument. This dog won't hunt, as we say. Speaking of that, let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and bring up the bracket here because I have some other issues with the bracket, but not on that one. Even if I was going to finish up, even if we went to 16, I see David Frame pushed in 16, team 17 and 18 would be pissed. It's,
it's always going to be about first one out, but that's all of this was why this season was so great, right? Like we can talk about it being messy, but I would bet the vast majority of people who are watching us right now or later on watch college football more intently across different conferences than they ever have.
I don't disagree. All right, taking a look at the bracket. Oh, let me get a super chat. We got a super chat for our friend Kerry Go Knowles first. Let me pull that up here. We had a lot of comments, hot and heavy tonight. 442211.
I have a question on that one. I always get confused because we bring it up and then I forget about it for months. I know it's 4-4, Big 10, SEC, 2-2, ACC, and Big 12. And then is there any at large in the 1-1?
There would be. It's well depends on if
Notre Dame and a G5 school.
Yeah, that's what.
Right.
You would have to have a path for G5, so you have to secure one spot for them.
Right, and if Notre Dame is in the other one, then like I'll have an issue with it, and I'll give you because that's very personal right now. In that zone of 4-4-2-2-1-1, where there's no G5 has to get in and Notre Dame is good, Miami at 13th would have been left out again.
Yes, that's a situation where I think that last one should be an at-large bid.
Yeah, there needs to be a pure at-large bid in there because you don't, and it could mean that Big 10 gets 5, right? It could mean that Big 10 gets, SEC gets 5. I'm using Miami because that's the one that's in that slot this year, but next year it's going to be somebody else who could very well be earning because it's also possible that the 4th Big 10 school who gets an automatic one could be ranked 21st in a given year. Not this year, right? But it's entirely possible for that to be the case where you get like 3 strong teams and 4 or 5 that are in the 19-20 zone, 22.
Yeah, it's if Notre Dame wants the benefit of an automatic qualifier, join a conference. Join the Big 10, join the SEC, join the ACC, join the Big 12, join a G5 conference. Just join a conference like everybody else has. So, thank you for the super chat, Kerry Go Knowles. It is much appreciated, sir. I'll give you a little applause. And I will let you cook in a minute. But yeah, listen, Notre Dame should not get an automatic qualifier for not doing anything.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook! I said let him cook!
Thank you so much for the super chat, Gary. Hope you're doing well, sir. Need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. If anybody else would like to leave a super chat, you can leave a super chat, become a member, gift a membership by clicking on the little icon, the little cash icon down there by the window, and I will show you how that works because we've got some memberships to gift out, and I'm going to gift them as soon as my mouse starts working. There we go. Timothy Green, Michelle Weintraub, RT, Numbskull News. Good to see you, Numbskull News. King Spleen, we're all gifted memberships to the College Football Mafia family by the College Football Mafia family. Welcome to the family, guys. Quick. All right, so here's the bracket. The 12 versus 5 game is going to be Clemson versus Texas. This is my first issue here. I don't have an issue with where Clemson's seated. It's a 3-loss team. I think that's even though they're conference champions, that's where Clemson needs to be seated. I think Texas getting the 5 seed is incorrect. I think Penn State should be 5.
Why do you think that?
I think that because Penn State's 2 losses were to Ohio State and Oregon, and they were both 1-score games. Oregon's the undefeated number 1, uncontested top team in the nation. You've got 1 loss to a number 1 team. Your other loss is a team that's in the top 6, but at the time they played them, they were in the top 4, I believe. And Texas has 2 losses to the same team. They have a loss to Georgia at home, and that was a larger spread than 1 score. And then they have a loss to Georgia, obviously, in the SEC championship game. But yeah, I would flip Texas and Penn State. Now, Penn State probably does not want to hear that. The last thing they want to hear is that they get put in that bracket because Penn State probably has the easiest path of anybody not getting a bye.
I would agree with that, though. I sort of think the SMU is going to. I know it's the white. I don't care. I kind of have this gut feeling on SMU, but
in addition to that, Indiana. You've got Indiana facing Notre Dame. We've got an in-state challenge here, so that'll be an interesting game. See how many Hoosiers show up in South Bend.
The get-in price for that game is already over $1,000.
Yeah. Again, I have an issue with Notre Dame being number 7.
I don't, because I actually thought they were going to be 5. So
I think they should be 8 or 9. Again, they didn't play in a conference, didn't have a shot at a conference championship game. Their best win isn't a really great win. I can't. What is their best win?
Texas A&M and Army are their theoretically best wins.
Yes. So, no, I don't think they deserve to be ahead of Tennessee and Ohio State. Those teams competed in Power 4 conferences. Obviously, they both lost 2 games within those conferences, but they played in a conference. Notre Dame didn't. I think you're rewarding Notre Dame for not playing in a conference by giving them number 7. Notre Dame didn't. I think they should be 8 or 9. Notre Dame.
Sorry about that.
It's all right. So yeah, I that's another. Again, my issue isn't with the teams that got in. I like all the teams that got in. I think you can make the argument for all of them. I also think you can make an argument for Alabama and Miami. I just have an issue with some of the seeding because Penn State, they get a host SMU. By the way, that's been announced. That will be a whiteout game. That will be a whiteout in Beaver Stadium. I believe it's at 4:00 in the afternoon, but it gets pretty dark up here in the north around that time. So
it's going to be an interesting game. I think it's good for SMU that they actually had to go play an outdoor cold game in Charlotte. Relatively, I know it's not the same as being in a Beaver Stadium with 100,000 people in a much colder environment, but just in terms of at least they had some degree of what it's like to play in a relatively colder, little bit more Clemson leaning environment, but that's nothing compared to what they're about to walk into at Penn State.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting seeing a playoff game hosted in Beaver Stadium. It'll be really cool. So got another super chat here from our friend Kerry Go Knowles. the number 6 seed has the easiest path to the championship game. Yes.
Turned out that way this year for sure. On paper, at least.
But I will say this: SMU, they came back again, and obviously it's not the same Clemson we've seen. It's not a great Clemson, but they could have just given in last night and panicked and not had a shot at all. They came back. They had the game tied with less than a minute left.
That was probably like a C+ game from them, because I've seen a lot of their games this year. They the thing I would say that they did is they reacted to the bigger size on Clemson better in the second half and managed to come back with that. They also, had a lot more drops than they've had in, I think, any other game this year. It's going to be hard for them to go in there, but like if I was going to call one upset, that's just the one that I think is possible. I don't really know if I believe anything else on here, though. Tennessee and Ohio State, I'm not looking at it as like an upset game other than the line itself being in favor of Ohio State.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the super chat, Kerry.
Winner.
What it's all about: winning, wins and losses. But yeah, number 6 has the easiest path. That's 100% right. SMU, they match up very well with Boise State. I look for that. If Penn State gets by SMU, that 6 versus 3 game, that might be a problem for the Broncos.
I think it is for no matter who they face. Whereas like Arizona State that we've seen the last few weeks against Clemson or Texas, like who knows?
Yeah, my issue with it is if they get boat raced, if Penn State goes in there and blows them out,
right?
This is going to be used as a rallying cry to try and take the G5's automatic away.
Oh, for sure. And conversely, the inverse will be true. If Clemson and SMU or Boise State or Arizona State actually win a game or two, it won't matter. Right? It'll be tails I win, heads you lose in terms of the positioning.
Arizona State got in as number 4 seed. We didn't think the Big 12 was going to get an automatic bye this as of this past Friday. It certainly wasn't in their favor. And not only did they get an automatic bye, the G5 also got an automatic bye by way of Clemson defeating SMU. We can talk a little bit about these championship games. Championship games yesterday were pretty damn good, especially
other than the Big 12 one.
Yeah, well, I enjoyed the Big 12 one myself.
I mean, just watching Scatterboo for sure was fun, right? Like watching, it was still interesting, but it wasn't a competitive game.
No, it was not competitive once the second half kicked off. But I did enjoy, again, for a lot of us, we don't get to see the Big 12 week in and week out. We're focused on the Big 10 and SEC and ACC games. The Big 12 is a little bit of an afterthought, especially to their media partners. They never get good scheduling. So having that time slot to themselves at noon was very cool to watch a full game of the Big 12. And Cam Scatterboo, that kid's like a human pinball. He was just bouncing off of people.
Yeah, it was pretty evident this weekend to kind of touch on what you just said. Like the ACC is ESPN's step kid for sure, but at least Jim Phillips finally got to make a fool of himself on the mothership network. The Big 12 for ESPN is like their foster kid, and you never even saw Brett Yormark at all yesterday or to politic or anything. Didn't even happen, at least not that I saw, and I was watching everything all day. And Fox treats the Big 12 kind of like ESPN treats the ACC.
Yeah, I actually couldn't believe Kenny Dillingham made it to his post-game news conference. I couldn't imagine walking off the field with balls that big after that 4th and 1 call, deep in their own territory, and you've got Cam Scatterboo, and you go for a throw, and you absolutely nail it for like a 70-yard play. That is balls out play calling.
Dan Campbell's adopted kid.
It was impressive. I was impressed. So then the Oregon Penn State game again, closer than most people thought. Penn State did miss a field goal in there that would have helped them in the margin. They also missed on a 2-point conversion, but they fought till the end.
They did have a nice little comeback there. It was comfortable enough to close enough to make it interesting and comfortable enough for my win to come through.
There you go. Boise State dominated UNLV. There really wasn't. There wasn't a lot of scoring in the second half, but Boise State, it never felt like they were not in control of that game.
No, it was different than their game with UNLV earlier in the season. The home field advantage, and just later in the season, they definitely had a few more steps on UNLV.
And then you had Georgia, Texas, went to overtime. That was a game. It was a good competitive defensive game, but I didn't think it was a good game. But it just goes to prove it's okay if your teams have no offense. That means you're great. But like if you're a great offense team, you have no defense, it means you should get passed by. Yeah, that was definitely a baseball score. Somebody put on Twitter, what inning is this?
That was Shannon Dawson.
Yes. Okay. So that was pretty apropos, because I think at the time it was like 10-6. But again, Georgia's quarterback's hurt, so the playoff committee's got to explain to me why they're number 2. If Florida State can't get in undefeated because they have a hurt quarterback, how is Georgia getting in? Oh.
Well, they have the only thing that's different. The theory was awesome if Georgia lost, but when they got to the moment that they won the conference, they had the automatic bid, so there was like literally no control anyway, right? If they had lost though, which was happening all over social in the latter part of the game when it was possible, it would have gone insane today.
Yes, and of course, number 1 Oregon has the absolute hardest path in this playoff. They're either going to have to play an Ohio State team that took them down to the wire and they beat by 1 point at home, or they're going to have to play a Tennessee team that's also very good and could put up points. I will say this for Oregon, though. I think Oregon last night, the way they played that game, they proved to me they are the best team in college football. I think if they're going to win a national championship, it is probably coming this year. I can't find. I mean, listen, Penn State put some points on them, but it was never like Oregon was not handily in control of that game.
Yeah, I think Oregon is clearly heading into the playoffs the best team. What they're not though is generationally great, right? They're 2024 are great, but they're not going to be talked about in like who the top 10 best teams of all time if they win the national title. Like winning the national title is amazing for whoever does it, so I'm not diminishing that, but they're not like that next. They're elite for this year. They're not elite for history.
The thing is, watching them yesterday, I said, this is a fantastic system offense, but they run it so well that I think you're right. It's not going to be Joe Burrow and LSU. It's not going to be those early 2000s Miami Hurricanes. It's not going to be
mid-90s Nebraska.
Yeah, or the 2010s Alabamas. But listen, you don't need to win style points to win a national championship. So they've got that system. Dylan Gabriel runs it well. I think Will Stein. I'm surprised Will Stein hasn't got more looks as a head coach. But I was really impressed with Oregon. I have a hard time believing Ohio State's going to get past Tennessee. That Oregon game could be rough. So we shall see, but I will pull that off there. We'll get back to some more of your things. I apologize if I miss any of these guys. I'm going through as many as we can. I don't think we've had nearly as many comments as we have in previous weeks as we do now, but I will try and get through as many of them as I can.
I'll try to start some too, Mo. Sorry about that.
Okay, you go ahead and do that. I'm trying to get back to where I left off here. We're just going to start right there. I think my Mountaineers are about to cancel the Alabama, Tennessee, and future Penn State games, possibly even Pitt games, because strength of schedule doesn't matter. No more than 2 losses. But strength of schedule does matter. I don't think that's an argument, David Frame. Alabama has an argument on strength of schedule. They just lose that argument due to strength of record.
Yeah, guys, this is go to collegefootballplayoffs.com. The criteria is right there, and it's not like strength of schedule gets 20% and this gets 20%. It is one of several things that they are to look at. It is not the only thing. And I do think figuring out a way to reduce your strength of schedule because you think you're gaming the system is a really short-term thinking bad idea that can come back and bite you later down the road, right? Like you can make an argument that having a stronger game against a team out of conference earlier might have had you more seasoned so that you wouldn't be, sitting back on your laurels by the time you played Vanderbilt. Like you have no idea how that game would have been transformative to another. And you don't know that next year there won't be two great teams in the SEC and a bunch of really crappy ones that all of a sudden you're going to be wishing you had a strong out-of-conference game that could help you with your strength of schedule. You literally have no idea.
Yeah, strength of schedule is the thing. But I think what probably helped SMU more than anything was the eyeball test last night. They came back. They tied it up. Great return by Clemson. Don't want to take anything away from them, but that was certainly lucky. I feel if Clemson did not get that return, I don't think Clemson wins that game. I think it goes to overtime. I think SMU had all the momentum on their side. I think SMU wins that game, and we're not even having this discussion. Alabama's in. AMAC's in the house. Play 9 conference games, and half the teams in the SEC would have one additional loss. Their records are artificially enhanced based upon 8 conference games and cupcakes.
Especially in a non-evenly balanced division world, right? Like you're subject to the luck of the draw, and you can wind up being a team. Like there's going to be a scenario if nothing changed, right? We know things are going to change. We're in a theoretical multiverse world where nothing changed, where 2 teams are going to have really bad in-conference strength of schedules despite maybe being really great, and one of them is going to lose out because they just got the random luck of getting softer teams that year in an unbalanced league, especially if they start to even get bigger without going to divisions, which is potentially possible.
Laura Weiss, a member. Good to see you, Laura. Texas Tech, Joey McGuire had pretty good things to say about the college football playoff a couple weeks ago. A true test of a conference is when the teams OL play each other. There are years between games against some teams in the SEC. They need to stop whining. Entitled Bozo. Yeah, that's a bad part about doing these larger conferences, guys. There's going to be times you don't see certain teams. Again, people want to complain about Indiana not playing anybody. Indiana didn't have a choice on their conference schedule. They did not know, obviously, they did not know that Michigan was going to be down this year. So it's all random, guys. Again, I think that's going to be rectified by a scheduling agreement between the 2 big boys. Illini Ted says still not sure about Purdue hiring Odom. I am with you. We'll go a little bit more in depth on that on the Big Ten Mafia show tomorrow. But yeah, I would have liked to see them get a young offensive guy, somebody like a Will Stein out of Oregon. You're going to have to put up points in the Big Ten now. Indiana's shown that. Replica member says the grind of playing Mercer in a November tune-up game really took a toll on them.
Yeah, it was. I'm so glad that they had to really, push themselves, but it helped them, jump up 2 spots in the rankings that time.
Hearing lots of talk of fan talk about the SEC wanting to move to 6 or 7 conference games and backfill with FCS. That's not going to do you any good. You're going to have even less teams in the college football playoff.
The SEC is a cult. Prove me wrong.
Yes. Bama has no argument. They do have an argument. It's just I don't think I don't think they're using the valid argument. Town Hawk is here. Alabama didn't lose an out-of-conference game. Red herring, Saban. Oh, wow, a lot of comments. David Frank. We need to move to 16-team playoff, top 4 from the SEC, top 4 from Big Ten, and 3 each from ACC and Big 12, and that gives 2 more spots. Again, you're not going to be able to lock out the G5. You're going to have to give them access. Other than that, I mean, you want to go to 16, but here's my problem, David. You're going to have teams 17 and 18 complaining. There's always going to be somebody who's left out. Unless we have like a 128 team playoff, somebody's getting left behind. So, and you can't, I know they're getting paid now. I don't think you can really expect kids to play 19 college football games in a season. All right, got another super chat from our buddy Carico Knowles, $50 super chat. Holy hell, that's hot, hot, hot.
Oh, hot, 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 hot.
Carrie's dropping.
He needs some milk. He needs some.
I am the milkman. My milk is delicious.
Thank you so much for the $49.99 super chat, Carico Knowles. Much appreciated. You're helping us keep the lights on here at the College Football Mafia family of networks. I'm pretty sure the only reason the SEC has the highest strength of schedule is because they are falsely rated and layered in the top 25. So 2 or 3 of us to see teams will always be in the hunt. It's called the SEC mind virus. Again, this isn't wrong. Rock brought it up. It's a cult.
I
have
still
to say
don't
Big
get.
Ten. I'm a Big Ten cultist myself. I'm a member of a cult as well.
Yeah, Kerry and I are not part of a cult for our conference. If
You
anything,
guys
we're
went out
Charles,
of your conference.
if anything, we're like Charles Manson's for our conference. In different forms. Kerry's coming at you with the gun, and my guys are kind of figuring out how to get you from behind. But this is the perfect example. Like, someone still needs to tell me, like, why Missouri is ranked, as an example, who is a top 25 win for multiple teams ahead of them. But even if they were ranked, why they're the highest, why they're as high as they are when their blowout losses were 30 plus points on their team versus, 2 or 3 lost teams behind them. Like, cool. Like, you want to say that they're 25th? They're not a top 20 team. I literally have no idea why you would put them as a top 20 team whatsoever.
Yeah, this is one of the reasons I hate preseason polling, because it artificially inflates a lot of teams. And even if they have a bad game, they'll say, well, they were number 11, so we're only going to drop them to 16 after a bad game. When in reality, they had such a bad game, they should probably drop down to like 24.
Well, it depends upon who you are, though, Moen, because I'm sure that if Georgia Tech had won another game or so, no one would have counted their win against then top 10 Florida State as a top 25 win. It would have selectively disappeared. But if you played them in the SEC at the time you played them, then it counts. I've learned. I was taught by the worst of them.
All right, Kerry, thank you for the super chat. I'll have a drink for you here, buddy. I know you can't have one, so I'll have one for you. The old Crown Royal. Just take a pull. All right, let's get to some start comments. Again, thank you, Kerry, for the super chat. That was most generous of you, sir. Again, feel free to reach out. Let me know how you're doing. I'd appreciate it. If we don't speak before then, have a Merry Christmas. All right. Let's see. Notre Dame needs to be forced to enter conference or never be in the playoffs again, from your lips to God's ears. Or to whoever we pray to in the cult, I guess to Tony Petitti's ears and Greg Sankey's ears. Yeah, Notre Dame needs to be forced to join a conference. I don't disagree with you. I don't like that Notre Dame did not compete for a conference championship and somehow still gets to be ranked higher than teams that did. And their one loss was probably the worst loss anybody could have had this year. They lost to Northern Illinois at home, and Northern Illinois was a middling MAC team this season. They weren't even a good MAC team.
Yeah.
I mean,
for a moment, they got elevated into the top 25, and then they proceeded to crap the bed multiple times the rest of the season and not even make their conference championship.
Yeah, this is a thing where people keep bringing up that Boise almost beat Oregon. Boise went on to become number 3 seed in the playoffs, guys. They won the Mountain West Conference. Northern Illinois did beat Notre Dame, and they did not win. They didn't even compete for the title in the MAC conference. So, terrible loss for Notre Dame. I don't disagree with you there, David Frame. Absolutely, the Irish should be forced to bend the knee, join a conference. I don't care which one. Pick one. Get in line like everybody else has. AMAC, Stanky is really going to be pushing hard for 4 auto bids since his teams couldn't get in on their own merit. Again, I think a lot of that could be resolved just by having a scheduling agreement, but
Yeah, I'm not in favor of the scheduling agreement only because it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I'm saying that even if tomorrow Miami got invited to the Big Ten. Like, I'd love to see those games, but then it's going to be used about like why nobody else has a strength of schedule and the inventory has all been taken internally to create the prophecy to come true.
again, I don't think those are mutually exclusive things. I did the math today. With the scheduling agreement of 16 games between the Big Ten and SEC, that would only be 13% of their out-of-conference games.
That's assuming that that's all they're going to do. I imagine a world where they schedule one out-of-conference game per team each year. And therefore, if they go to 9 or 10, then there's like barely any other inventory. And Lord knows Alabama can't take Mercer off their schedule.
Well, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think you've got 13% that still leaves quite a few games. They're still going to schedule Big 12 teams. They're still going to schedule ACC teams. Again, I think that's more of a way to make money and keep your brands up there. David Frame again says, I think the whole thing is going to fracture and we're going to end up with multiple national champs in playoffs.
Cool. AP's excited in the USA Today poll, and they'll have the day after where they'll decide from all the bowl game winners who the true national champion is by a vote, and we'll all be waiting for that.
Yeah,
and Talking Heads will be playing in the background.
Like, I get the SEC's pissed. Alabama didn't make it in. It's the first year of this, guys. First year. Next year, they may get 5 teams in.
Yeah. And by the way, let's see. Which commissioner was actually in the meetings figuring out this format? Oh, yeah. Greg Sankey was in those meetings. Yes. Not everyone was, but Greg Sankey was. Let's just be really clear. He was one of them.
And Bob Bowlesby, who was also in that meeting, had suggested that they only do 2 polls, one the week before conference championship game and the one we had today. And ESPN would have thrown a fit over it, and they could not get that through. Jose says we need to just go to 16 teams and quit farting around. Again, Joe, you're going to have 17 and 18 pissed. The SEC would only get 4 in that scenario. Somebody would get 5 in, and they'd complain about it. So I don't think it eliminates the issue. Friends call me Sean. How could the seedings have changed if 27 and 28 Duke Louisville were ranked 24 and 25 UNLV Memphis? How close are those teams?
I don't think in this particular case, because of what happened with Clemson, right, coming in and bid stealing, I don't know that it would have materially changed right now. If SMU had won and Scratch had kept on going that way, there could have been a different argument with Miami and Alabama on terms of like the top 25 wins zone as the very specific example this time. That's like what my answer would be.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, this is our first year, guys. We don't have a lot of data pool to draw from. So,
well, if you just look at what Ward Manuel said, one of his things was that Alabama was 3 and he didn't say strength of schedule. This was last week. Doesn't matter now, right? But last week, if Clemson had not upset SMU, last week he said specifically in his 3 or 4 things, because I did a rant on my other show about it and I carved him up, was out that Alabama was 3 and 1 against teams in the top 25. If that were to change, Miami would have been 2 or 3 and 1. So that whole talking point goes away a little bit, and the strength of schedule would have also gone up a little bit. Whether it would have made a difference, I don't know, because it just means more for the SEC.
Just means more. By the way, if you guys were unaware, Rock co-hosts a show on Thursday nights with our friend Flo from Miami, at Miami Flo on YouTube. Go ahead and check that out and watch him carve up commissioners on there. Jan Hulk, why do G5 need to have an automatic spot? It's because of antitrust issues. If they did not give the G5 a path to the playoffs, there'd be lawsuits, there'd be congressional inquiries, or
I also personally like it. Just like I like having possible upsets in college basketball. Now, granted, that's different because every conference champion is getting in. This is actually less. It's one of the lesser conferences, so to speak, getting in. Like, I think the seeding is an issue, and I think you can talk about the bye, but again, people crying about not being the 12th school, like you should have done your business on top. And if that's the pot that gets a G5 in to throw things in and add interest, I'm fine with it.
Very good. Thank you for the question, Jan. Illini quarterback Altmaier said in an interview today he doesn't know what the future holds about if he will be back. In other words, pay me or I'm gone, the new NIL norm. We talked a little bit about this on Friday's show. Jalen Daniels announced he was sticking at Kansas. They got a new deal done. You're probably right. That's the way it's going to work from now on. It's going to be pay to play.
The newest norm, I think, is that people who are in the playoffs are announcing they're going into the portal. Last year, if I recall, the 4 schools, we didn't really hear any portal announcements, even from reserves, until after the games. Now I think everyone is worried about getting in before the money dries up during this period, because there's a lot of schools trying to game the system ahead of the revenue side where they can basically exceed the salary cap by going heavy this year. So that's an interesting development too.
Keep chopping, a resident Rutgers fan. People will bitch at 16-2. I would bet everything I have on that. Again, they're going to come until you do a playoff with every single college football team. People are going to find a way to complain about it, and even then, they're going to find a way to complain.
Yeah, you could have just stopped at people will bitch, keep chopping, and just been universally appropriate.
Remember, Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois at home. Not even another top 25 with a loss that bad. Why do they get a mulligan? Kick Notre Dame out. Don't disagree with you. Do not disagree with you. The SEC will have to help in that regard. The Big Ten can't do it alone. And the ACC is going to fight you on it. So, Texas had the easiest SEC schedule, and the CFP gave them the easiest path to the semifinal. What a joke. Again, you can't really control who your conference schedules against you. Again, I understand they had an easy schedule, but they didn't know Michigan was going to be down this year. Michigan was down this year. So I don't know. I don't know. Just don't know anymore. Got another super chat from our friend Kerry Go Knowles, man. He's letting them roll tonight. Moen, I'm not on Twitter anymore, so you will need to get my info from Greg at PATC later this week. I will do that. I owe Greg a call, so I will get that information from him, Kerry. Good to know. Thank you, sir. Again, if I don't speak to you before then, please have a Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah too. I don't know. Thanks for the membership. No problem, RT. We're going to have more members-only videos, members-only streams coming now that the season is over. Be a lot more content on the channel, so please use that membership and enjoy it, sir or ma'am. Devo Bronx says people whining about the G5 need to realize that the only reason Boise is 3 seed is they're Boise. They do it all the time. Any other G5 probably a 12 seed. That game against, we talk about not having anything to do with strength of schedule, but that game against Oregon really did boost Boise. The reason Boise is a 3 seed is the Big 12 and ACC left the door open by not having a dominant team. Yes. Parity. Parity is the great leveler. Got to have some giants in the conference. That's why I said it was good when the ACC had Miami come back and have a good season this year. Got to have some giants in the conference. Jose says, keep chopping. Yeah, you're right. By having 3 at large instead of just 1 seems reasonable. ASU versus Boise for the 3 seed. I'd imagine the committee had some heated discussions there.
I don't think so.
Again, strength of schedule.
They were so far ahead of each other. By the point that happened, there was 7 or 8 spots between Arizona State and Boise heading into the weekend. So I think that they had those conversations a while ago. Remember, 5 weeks ago, ASU was a 0.1% chance of making it.
Yeah, again, strength of schedule. That game against Oregon, the fact that they would schedule, even though they lost, the fact that they would schedule that game against Oregon benefited them in the college football playoff. Devo Bronx says Penn State will lose to Boise in the desert. Home game there for Boise. PSU just laid its victim. I hear you've had some success in the Fiesta Bowl. Penn State's a very good football team. They're a very they did not give up fighting against Oregon. So, and again, their loss to Ohio State, that's a whole James Franklin in his head situation. RT says my chaos bracket is ASU winning. My realistic bracket is Oregon winning. I think Oregon and Penn State probably have the best chance.
It has to be Oregon because I need to be right in my preseason pick with the Mafia.
Okay. By the way, this guy, I have to tabulate results still, but I think this guy ended up winning the poll we did for college football Mafia family. Illini Ted says Penn State is the noon game at Texas, mid-afternoon. Penn State is noon. That's a game against SMU. Texas is mid-afternoon. And Ohio State is prime time on Saturday night. I have heard tickets for that Ohio State game are already going through the roof. And they're complaining that they only got like 3,500 tickets for Tennessee fans. And my point of view is, listen, that is the best option for Tennessee fans. Get as many Ohio State fans in there as you can. Because if Ryan Day starts screwing up in that game, they're going to be booing Ryan Day very loudly. So, Conundrum says Hoosiers on Friday night, under the lights and touchdown Jesus. Yes, I told Becky and Pickles today, we are all Hoosiers fans on that blessed day. Right, Rock and Rant, back me up here. You're a Hoosier fan.
Absolutely. I mean, it goes without saying. I don't like Notre Dame. I hate Notre Dame. I despise Notre Dame, and that's transitive to Brian Kelly. Pin it, post it, save it.
Friends call me Sean. I'm okay with auto bids, not cool with auto seats.
Cool by me too.
I do not see one first-round game that shouldn't be competitive except the SMU game. I don't know what they haven't released the spreads on it. I don't think yet, but I'm not going to count out SMU in that game. But if Penn State boat races them, Alabama fans are going to be even louder. Even louder.
And I'll be telling them to cry more, even louder.
ASU's schedule was hardly better than Boise's. Big 12 in full delusion. Devo Bronk is out here spreading some Christmas cheer. Jan Holt, Clemson is like Missouri this year. That's how high do I think of it?
I don't agree with that, Jan. I get the point, but people are maybe not everybody watched the Clemson South Carolina game, who everybody's talking about as the hottest SEC team. Clemson was about to go in, at least tie that game, if not win that game on the last drive until Cade Colbert threw an interception when he just didn't need to, when they could have at least tied it right there. So, I get it earlier in the season, but they've been playing better lately. So I'm not sure if that holds water to it, other than losing Georgia by 30. Missouri lost to two other teams by 30.
Jose says, if we were in the 4-4-2-2-1 +3 this year, would Miami, Bama, and BYU gotten in?
Miami and Bama would have. I don't know about BYU because you still currently had in the final rankings. You still had Ole Miss and South Carolina ahead of BYU. I think BYU is technically 15th, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. Someone might know.
But in BYU's defense, they would have a win over SMU, who's a playoff team.
For sure.
And that was a road win for them. So.
But that was the seeding. So, like, if it's just three more, then it's going to be the first two out plus the next one out, right?
And you're going to have people that would complain that Colorado.
4, 8, 10, 12, 13, 16. Well, actually, if you go to 16, then yes, BYU. Sorry, I was just doing math wrong there. If you got to 16, I think based off of the final full poll from the CFP committee, then BYU would have gotten it in.
Keep chopping. I think the new pack will be very similar to Big 12 quality. I disagree. Conundrum, clown show, Jim Phillips, clown show.
I don't know if everybody saw his one. He woke up from the dead. Shout out, congratulations, you're alive.
1 year
And
too late.
You got onto ESPN and not just the ACC network in week 3. Shout out. But the guy couldn't even combine the right Miami versus Florida State, the correct year, and the right quarterbacks. I would have liked him to just shut up because he just did not necessarily help, and still don't know where he was last year when he screwed over Florida State.
Yeah, you could make an argument that Clemson and Florida State are doing things the wrong way, but I don't think you can argue that Jim Phillips is a terrible commissioner.
I mean, you could pretty much argue that if there was a college football playoff for the worst commissioner, he'd be the 1 seed.
That's true. He would get a first round bye for sure.
First round. They'd just be like, dude, go to the finals. We're going to put everybody else in here for a second. We're going to pull some people out of retirement because we got to find somebody worthy of competing against you. It's probably going to be you versus a retired Pac-12 commissioner for the win.
Yeah, Tony Petitti was the only one who didn't come out and say anything. He just was happy to be there.
I wonder why. Maybe
he knew
because
he had
4 in the top 8.
He had 4 in regardless. He wasn't going to do anything to upset that apple cart. Mr. Ed Wayner, good to see you, Ed. Hello, gentlemen. Karma for Alabama after getting gifted CFP last year at the expense of a 13-0 Florida State. That's a very fair assessment. That Alabama, last year they had 1 loss, but they said strength of schedule. And they got in. Scataboo like a Brett Favre, RB, Sandlot kid you just love. Yeah, it was fun watching him play. I really, really enjoyed watching him play.
Yeah, great. Hopefully he doesn't steal money from people in Mississippi in 30 years.
Kerry Go Knowles, number 1, Oregon has the most difficult path. That's true, Kerry, but I think Oregon is the best equipped to handle it. But I would be fine if Oregon did not win a national championship. That would be funny. I'm not going to root for the Ducks. Yes, they're a Big Ten team, but I'm not rooting for them. Not going to happen. Ryan Willie, expand to 32, top 7 from ACC, Big 12, and SEC, 1 from Mountain West, MAC, CUSA, Sun Belt. Start season early August. Again, Ryan, I appreciate the sentiment. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who agree with you, sir, but 33, 34, and 35 would complain.
Listen, the other divisions of college football have been doing a 16-team playoff for years. It's not that hard, guys. Just get to 16, figure out whichever model makes the SEC not cry, and just go with it.
Yeah, my only statement is going to be Mountain West, MAC, Conference USA. You think Alabama's pissed now? Wait until an SEC team gets left out for an 8-4 CUSA team. But I mean, I understand the sentiment. I appreciate your super chat, Ryan. I'll give you a little evil laugh for putting that out there. Evil badger, you. Laura Weiss, can't believe Tech held Scataboo to less than 70 yards rushing. Yeah, I can't believe anybody held that kid 70 yards rushing. Kid was insane. I thought the new big was a raging success. We got 4 teams in. You can make whatever argument you want to be about Indiana, but they beat who they were supposed to beat. SLC, is Cam Rising coming back to the Utes for a 9th season?
It's just going to be an AI version of him with somebody else's body.
Yeah, they're just going to keep adding metallic and robotic parts to him and just keep him on the field forever.
Hey, Mo, and quick update. Penn State's a 7.5-point favorite over SMU on one of the lines I just saw. So, idea that, Vegas isn't stupid. So, everything is essentially within a touch. I think there's one other game, but I'm sure the lines will change and move a lot for sure.
Yeah, that line will definitely move. Jose says, how awesome will it be when Hoosiers beat Notre Dame? Listen, I'm going to root for Ohio State, but I will be rooting for Indiana as well, just as hard. You can back me up on that, Rock. Say you're going to be rooting.
Absolutely. I will be making the first illegal T-shirts with a Notre Dame hijacked leprechaun and with the words "Google it" across his face.
There we go. Conundrum. Ryan's day job is writing on Buckeyes beating the Ducks and the game after that. You're absolutely right. And even then, I don't know if it's enough. I think they might let him go off into the NFL. Do Big 12 fans feel less bad that ACC got a second CFP slot than if SEC would have gotten a fourth slot? I think we can 100% agree that that is universal, that everybody prefers the ACC getting a second shot and the SEC getting one less. Ryan Willie with another super chat. Thank you, Evil Badger. No guaranteed spot for Notre Dame. I am for it. Give you like Keith Jackson.
We're gonna play football. Yippee!
We're gonna play some playoff football. Yippee! Thank you for the super chat, Ryan. I agree with you. No guaranteed thing for Notre Dame. Let Notre Dame sit their ass at home in South Bend and dream about playing in the playoffs. All right, I'm going to jump around here. We're getting late in the show, and we've got 40 plus comments still started here. So I'm just going to try and jump around here as much as I can. If you want something that must absolutely be read, it'll have to be a super chat, guys. I apologize, but we have lots of people chiming in here tonight, as well they should. The ACC should, this is from our friend John Dry, the ACC should feel bad that a school many didn't want, SMU, and is basically not getting paid by the ACC, made the playoffs.
There's an alternate theory is the ACC should be, it's kind of smart that they got SMU.
That's true. They got two teams then. Friends call me Sean. If it wasn't for strength of schedule, Alabama wouldn't even be in consideration. 3 losses, including a blowout. Yeah. Kirby complaining about Sankey in front of Sankey. Georgia about to get fined for 10 fake injuries.
It was excellent.
I think that's their best hope for a championship. I don't think Georgia's getting fined anything. Movie Time Blue says, I'm fine with the current format. Some years the Big Ten will get less than another conference. Luck of the draw. Again, I don't disagree with that. It's 1 year, guys. Yes, the SEC only got in 3 this year. Next year they could get in 5, and they wouldn't say a peep. So let's just chill out. First year. Let's see how this plays out. I don't think we need to tear down the house yet. Bama Dude, 18. Good to see you, Bama Dude. SEC mind virus is ridiculous.
I agree, but probably not in the same way that Bama Dude is saying it. That's why it's a virus, because you just said we. That's why it's a virus. That's what Carrie is saying.
Yes. Before Michigan won, we had 8 out of 10 natties.
That's the whole
I don't know
point.
how many Alabama had. I don't know how many of those were Alabama's. 2 of them were Georgia's. 1 of them was Auburn's.
Yeah. I would just answer that thing as before Michigan won, we had 3, meaning Alabama or whatever that number is out of the 10 nationals. That would prove the point. Theoretically, saying we is exactly why people mock the SEC.
Thank you for your comment, though, Bama Dude. Much appreciated. If you're new here, consider subscribing, checking in with us. It would be appreciated. Mr. Ed Wayner, a 16-team CFP, in my opinion, would be good for Big 12 if they get at least 2 guaranteed slots and allows them to have a 4 or 8-team in-conference playoff using 1 or 2 unscheduled conference games. Boy, that's another one. That's a whole nother level adding that conference tournament in there.
More games, the better.
Hey, Mo and Rock and Rant CFM fam. Go Devils. Thank you, Joaquin Morales. Congratulations to the Arizona Sun Devils, Arizona State Sun Devils, who were picked to finish last and won their conference. Hummus Hero, the current format is fine. Movie Time Blues. Those are the top 4 conference winners, automatically getting the top 4 seeds. Give them auto bid, but seed the teams in order of ranking.
Fine with that myself.
Conundrum lets Bama Dude know schedule Boise State in week 10 instead of Mercer.
Maybe you jump
Go
6
say-
spots on that victory.
Go say it says Georgia Tech. I don't know that Rock is happy with Georgia Tech right now.
I'm fine with Georgia Tech. You know what? They won the game. And they
Should
also
be
started the
SEC
season on a
champion.
great note.
Should have beat SEC champion Georgia too, by the way.
Yep. I got nothing but respect for Georgia Tech this year. It screwed up my season, but Miami should have won the game if they wanted to not have to say that.
The common narrative is Indiana isn't good. If they beat Notre Dame, that narrative will change immediately. Very few will say Notre Dame was average. I'm telling you right now, if anybody gets boat raced in the first round, you're going to hear about it from Alabama. Our friend Nitwood is in the house, Penn State. Hi, guys. Merry Christmas. You got a Christmas gift early. You got the
Same to
easiest
you,
path to the
Nitwit.
playoffs, brother. Congratulations to Nitwit. I don't know if you're going to be going to Beaver Stadium, but if you do, cheer your head off.
And if you see whatever his name, Ward Manuel, puts a mistletoe above him.
He looks like a human thumb. I couldn't imagine actually trying to kiss that guy. Slumlord ESPN overplayed their hand for 2 years, and we have woken up to their propaganda.
FSU tried to tell everyone last year if you weren't paying attention.
Speaking of FSU fans, it's VC Noel from our friends over at Garnet and Old. Happy Sunday evening, college football fans. Good to see you, Vince. I am sure you're enjoying this situation with Alabama being left out and not totally rubbing that into people's faces. If you're a Florida State fan or just a fan of the southeastern area of the country football-wise, tune in there. Tune in Garnet and Old on YouTube. Very interesting stuff they do. Here's another one. Semin Old School. Got 2 Florida State fans. Bruh, I hate how much I like Rock and Rant. For real, though, he keeps it real. I respect that, dude.
Appreciate it.
Man, Alabama gets left off the playoffs, and Florida State fans enjoying a Miami fan.
Broken
This
clock
really-
theory, right? Again,
This
College
is
football
really
edition.
the greatest timeline. FF18 buffs. Hey, friends. Colorado players available will be playing in the bowl game, including Shadur and Travis, because they want to play for Prime. NIL should require bowl games. I think that's going to be something we're going to see in the future.
I think that Cam Ward is playing for Miami. Damian Martinez is for sure. And 3 other draft eligible guys have already said it. So I hope that becomes the case as a sign, like either that their deals required it or that opting out is not looking good for key players when people are thinking about them leadership wise for the draft. Like, I don't know what it is, but I hope it becomes a trend again. And if Colorado started, great.
Illini Ted says if NFL-ready players were forced to play in bowl games for NIL reasons, you would also see massive insurance policies being set up on those same players.
They
I think
already
those
are.
already exist. Yeah.
They already exist, and it's even cheaper and easier to get a one game. The season ones are the ones that are harder to get or more expensive, but like one game to protect your draft position, you can get those, whether it's the full amount or 90%, don't know, but you can get them.
Keep Chopping says all big players have injury insurance now. That's through the conference. You can also get individual policies. The more you pay, the more it'll cover. Can't imagine the conference injury amount would cover the lost millions of an injury to an NFL first rounder. Again, if you're willing to put up $150,000 to $200,000, you can get a $10 million policy for a single game. And if you're Hunter or either of the Sanders, I'm sure you could afford that. Mike Smith, haven't seen you in a while, Mike. Love the beard. How funny was it when Kirby Smart was ripping on Sankey for their schedule and camera pans over to Sankey with emo face? Oh,
Not all heroes wear capes, and sometimes even I like Kirby Smart.
great visual right there, Mike. Great visual. Illini Ted says, no Notre Dame in the 32. I like it. He's got your support, Ryan Willie. Congratulations. You got the Illini on your side. Shonsky's in the house. Remember, good to see you, Shonsky. What we need to quit happening is worrying about how many SEC and Big Ten thinks they're deserving. I think the committee got it right. Again, I don't think they could have got it wrong.
Shunsky, like, we think they got it right. We're talking about how Alabama thinks they got it wrong. So go to the Crimson Tide boards and tell them that and see how that works out for you.
Stormy Cyclone, question for Moan. Is all forgiven at Ohio State if Day makes title game? He's got to win the title game. Making the title game is not going to be sufficient. It's just not, guys. He's already made one title game. He's going to have to do something. He's going to have to win a title, and he's going to have to come back next year and beat Michigan on the road. You are grasping, Moan. Let it go about Notre Dame. Never, ever, ever bend the knee.
It's a national pastime, man. You're missing out, Chomsky.
Friend Gary Pakaris, breaking. Ohio State's Devin Brown plans to enter the transfer portal. Not a shocker there. I believe Aaron Noland is also going to enter the portal. They apparently are really happy with how Julian Sayin has developed. He's a true freshman, but they're really happy with how he's developed. VC Knoll says, indeed, we, talking about Bama Dude's comment from earlier, peek around the corner with Greg Flugar says Devin Brown is going to get paid. Does Minnesota have the money to pay him? Can they keep Coy Pirich and sign Devin Brown? That's going to be the question. Devin Brown is a good quarterback. He just has some injury issues, guys. Our friend Timothy Green, who is now a member. I think the top two teams that make it to the championship in each league should go.
I do not agree with that. I think if you're already ranked in the top 12, then there should be some protection for losing if that's your new data point, which is a big part of the debate. But if you wind up getting into a conference championship and you're the 27th ranked team by way of some weird tiebreaker in a conference where not everybody plays each other, I don't think that's a good way to go. I think if you happen to be in the top 10 already and you lose a game in modest fashion, I'm less upset about that.
All right. Just want to let you guys know we got one more comment to read. I'm going to put that on the screen here shortly. Just as a reminder, we're getting ready to wrap up here. Tomorrow at 8 p.m. is the Big Ten Mafia show here on the College Football Mafia family of networks. That'll be at 8 p.m. with myself, Becky, and Sergeant Pickles. We'll go over the action in the Big Ten Conference Championship game, take a look at the bowls that the Big Ten teams will be playing in this season. And then on Tuesday night at 8 p.m., you have Daniel Gygax, Wild U, and Nate Bomber Brown. They will be hosting a Big 12 Mafia show. They'll be talking about the Big 12 championship game, as well as the bowls that the Big 12 is playing in. And then on Wednesday, Nate has a very special show with a very special guest. I believe the time on that is 8 p.m., so tune into that. Other than that, I think I've hit all the programming things. Oh, right. Go ahead and plug your show with Miami Flow.
Yeah, we have a show on Thursday nights. It's a Miami-based channel, but it's a national show. Has a little bit of a Miami filter to it, but is primarily national. It's called College Football Express with Flo, who you've seen on the College Football Mafia a few times. It's a great time to check in with him because he's very tied into the recruiting and portal side of things on Miami side, but also specifically with Miami players that might be elsewhere, just from being part of the youth football leagues throughout all the time. So on a broader level, if you have questions about Miami players that might be at Ohio State who could possibly be going into the portal or similar, you can definitely come by and check out some questions in the next few weeks specifically around that.
Fun show. It's a very fun show. Before we wrap up here with the last comment, I would like to say thank you to Kerry Go Knowles and Ryan Willie for their generosity tonight. That is greatly appreciated and helping us keep the lights on around here, guys. Wish you both a happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, annual gift giving day, whatever you guys celebrate.
Boxer Day.
Boxing Day. That's a good one. And then this is the last one. We're going to leave you with our friend Numbskull News. If you're not following Numbskull News on YouTube, you're missing out on one of the funniest guys to cover college football. Definitely
Absolutely.
Check him out. Give him a subscription. Give him a like. Give him a shout out. Say you're here from the Mafia. Bama can suck it.
Enjoy your game against Michigan, Bama. I'll be enjoying mine against Iowa State and hopefully getting some Pop-Tarts out of it. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, good luck against Michigan. Hopefully you guys got a coach who can take care of it. Some of us don't have a coach who can handle it. But my team is in the playoffs. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the 12-team playoff in general. Should be some exciting stuff in the coming weeks, guys. So anything else from you, Rock and Rant?
No, just looking forward to seeing the complaining and crying as we have it every time of this year with college football. It doesn't matter whether it was 2, 4, 16, 12, whatever it's going to be. But great season. Not the best results that every one of us wanted, depending upon who your team is. But now it's all into the playoffs and seeing where it goes in a few weeks. And remember, we got Army-Navy coming up this week.
That's right. We've got the Army-Navy game this weekend. So for myself, for Rock and Rant, I want to tell you guys peace out. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Mowing After Dark. We will see you guys next Sunday.